So joining us now is Rachel Hoover Canto, who is the author of her newest book, Pretty Good Catholic.
There it is.
Rachel, thank you so much for being here today with Bishop and I.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. So I know like I mentioned to you before the show got started, we've had a lot of people come on already to talk about dating and ways to really just find a good and holy spouse that will get them, God willing, to heaven someday. But with your book, just even a brief overview for the viewers listening, just over half of Catholic adults in the U.S. are married. But I'm wondering, why isn't this number higher if the church is pro-marriage and pro-family? What do you think the reason for that is?
I think rather than just one reason, there are a whole multitude of reasons that are sort of layered on top of each other. Because sometimes we oversimplify it and we say, well, so many young adults aren't really practicing their faith, or they don't really care about marriage or getting married in the church, and that's why the weddings are going down. But I have found that so many very devout single adult Catholics who are really looking for marriage are still struggling, partly because it's just hard to meet fellow Catholics and know if you're on the same page about anything the church teaches. It's hard to navigate sending the right signals to show that you're interested, just getting to that first date. And then if you do go on a few dates, then those big, heavy discernment questions come into play. Are we really a good fit for each other? Would this person make a good parent? Am I actually called to marriage at all? Maybe I should have considered priesthood or religious life. Sometimes that question suddenly crops up when you're already in a relationship. And so there are difficulties I find at every stage, from being completely single all the way through that engagement stage. And just getting through all of those hurdles one by one, it can take a lot of time. And a lot of people are getting married a lot later in life than they had hoped to as a result.
Hey, Rachel, great to be with you, by the way. How's everything in Nashville these days?
Things are going well here. We're getting a lot of rain and thunderstorms. That's normal this time of year.
Oh, yeah, 'tis the season.
And
by the way, you mentioned in your book that...
are...
Thank you. You mentioned in your book that sometimes young people can put themselves into camps and kind of isolate themselves. Can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. So even among Catholics who kind of should be all on the same page about what we believe and how to worship God, we often kind of sort ourselves into different flavors or tribes of Catholicism, right? There are people who are really big fans of the traditional Latin Mass or the more charismatic movement or something specific within the church. And as long as the movement has church approval, there's nothing wrong with having a specific devotion like that. But some people seem to take it so far that there's division or sort of strife between different groups, right? And obviously that's less than ideal for all kinds of reasons. But one thing that I kind of found as I researched for this book and focused on was that it seems to be an obstacle to marriage as well, because not only are people in kind of my age group who are still single, not only are we looking for a fellow Catholic to marry, but we're also looking for, the right type of Catholic, or someone who already agrees with us on this whole laundry list of different things. And I encourage people to be a little more open, think about what is really church teaching, what is really God's will, focus on that first, sort of those core things. And then as you go through the relationship, you can sort of see if your devotions and those sort of lesser beliefs align well enough to continue forward. But giving someone a chance, just getting to know someone a little bit, trying to understand why they are devoted to, the liturgy or devotions that they care so much about, and just sharing with joy what you're interested in can be a really good starting point, and I think can help heal some of those divisions in the church, as well as bringing people into more, community and family.
Rachel, there's a lot of girls and guys who are in my friend groups who are in the season of singleness right now, and they're getting very frustrated and they don't know what to do, and maybe even some of them are idolizing marriage and thinking like, oh, my life will only begin once I get married, or my life will fall back into place once I get married, and they're forgetting that they can actually strive for sainthood now and all these other things. But can you give us a glimpse into, when someone picks up your book, what are they going to be reading about on these pages that will resonate with these like really good desires on their heart to be married someday?
Absolutely. I mean, I wrote this book because I wish I had had this book myself a few years ago. I just got married in January. It's a very happy ending to my story, but I was writing it sort of as I was engaged and in the throes of the dating scene a little bit still. And so I really wanted to offer some very, very practical advice for taking steps toward that vocation that we feel called to. I think it's really important, obviously, to put things in God's hands and to live in the present moment, to grow in holiness now, to see what God is calling us to do with our lives, even in this season of singleness. But at the same time, not to stifle that desire that God has placed in our hearts. You know, as you mentioned in the beginning, Monet, we're called to community. We're called to form families, most of us, you know, spiritual motherhood and fatherhood, as well as for many of us, biological motherhood and fatherhood as well, is just a huge desire because it's so built into our nature. And I don't think God wants us to stifle that completely and sort of pretend we don't want it or that it's not important. I think we're supposed to embrace that desire and have that prompt us to take action and collaborate with God and work alongside him to just bring ourselves into, you know, new circles where we can meet new people, see what happens, just take it one step at a time, and working with God and helping ourselves as well as letting him help us at the same time, I think is the right approach when it comes to finding a spouse.
Rachel, we only have about 30 seconds left. Just quickly, what do you think about dating apps versus meeting people in person? And then how can we get a copy of your book?
Sure. I think both of those are really good strategies. I think people should use online dating as just one tool among several to meet new people and then try to bring that relationship into real life as quickly as possible. It's a good tool that we have in the modern world that should be used as long as it's used rightly, alongside trying to meet people in person. And people can find a copy of the book at prettygoodcatholic.com. It was just published by Vianney Vocations in February.
Wonderful. Well, Rachel, I really think you and Taylor O'Brien, who runs Candid Dating, should chat sometime, because I think your book and her dating platform will really go hand in hand. Thank you so much for joining Bishop Reed and I this morning, and please be assured of our prayers, especially for being newly married. Congratulations on that.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
God bless your marriage, and thank you so much. It was great meeting you and having you here in the living room with us.